Finally, something to smile about in my trash life with the New York Giants being my favorite team. And I'll tell you, if you've been on this channel for a long time, you know how excited I am. I am a massive Brian Burns fan, and I wanted the Giants to draft him back in 2019. They had number 6 overall. I was a Brian Burns believer. Like, take him at number 6. They opt for Daniel Jones, and then the new general manager, Joe Shane, opts to extend him at one of the richest rates in the league, which is unbelievable for Daniel Jones. Now, they do have an opt-out in the contract, essentially, an out in after 2024, where they can save money by cutting him. Not a ton of dead cap, all things considered. Quarterback still remains a need. We have a lot to talk about with this. So, first off, let's talk about the compensation we have via Jordan Raanan on Twitter. New York Giants beat reporter, really. And here's what he has. The Giants get Brian Burns, one of the best pure pass rushers in the NFL. Is he a phenomenal run defender? Not one of the upper echelon guys of the 3-4 outside linebackers, but pure pass rush ability, which is what these guys get paid on. Look at Bryce Huff to the Eagles. He's kind of been a designated pass rusher that just got paid, 3 years, $50 million or something in that neighborhood. Brian Burns obviously getting significantly more because he's a better overall player. But the Giants give up number 39. That's their own second round pick. A 2025 fifth rounder, that's a fifth round pick next year, and then a fifth round pick swap this year, assuming that is this year, of course. Doesn't exactly say expressly, but assuming that is 2024. Now, what's the difference between pick number 39 and pick number 47 that they got via the Leonard Williams trade earlier in the year? And the answer is ultimately not a ton. Yes, at the time, it's going to be, oh my goodness, I can't believe that they missed out on X player who was drafted at 42 or 43 or whatever. But they're really only moving down a handful of spots. And that's courtesy of Leonard Williams, 247. So they still keep a second round pick. So you can kind of look at this like Leonard Williams and a slight trade down from 39 to 47 for Brian Burns, and obviously the opportunity to extend him. When you look at the contract, it is significant. A second and a fifth, of course, plus the pick swap, for the opportunity to give him 5 years, $150 million. And that is a ton. And we knew that Brian Burns was looking for $30 million a year, and he gets it. Is he within the top 5 pass rushers overall in the entire league? I wouldn't say that, but he obviously has a ton of potential and the opportunity to build into that $150 million player. And let's talk about it from a salary perspective, right? We don't have every detail, but it's $87.5 million total, fully guaranteed. That's actually not awful. When you look at the top edge rushers in the league, and we're going to value this in terms of AAV, which is the average of what they're making per year, Brian Burns slots in at $30 million per year. However, it's important to note when these players signed. The salary cap tends to go up every year, and it took a huge bump up in this 2024 offseason. When Joey Bosa signed at 25, he got $27 million per year. When TJ Watt signed at 26, he got $28 million per year. We got to keep in mind not only the age that these guys signed, but where the salary cap total was at that time. TJ Watt has obviously been under contract for a handful of years. The cap hit is now $30 million. And is Brian Burns on the level of TJ Watt? I wouldn't say that. Obviously, right? I wouldn't say that. However, it's important to adjust for inflation within the league and what the actual value of these contracts really are. Like, is Myles Garrett $5 million per year worse than Brian Burns? Obviously not. But there's a huge difference from signing in 2020 to signing in 2024. Brian Burns is currently 25 years old, but he's going into his age 26 season. This is really the prime of his career, right? You're going to have him for age 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. So you're not really worried about a fall off due to age or a lack of athleticism. When you look at pure production from Brian Burns from the typical classic counting stats of sacks and tackles for loss, right? He is one of the better players in the league. 9 sacks in 2020 and 2021, 12.5 sacks in 2022, and 8 in 2023. When you look at the Pro Football Focus grades for him, if you look at total pressures, Brian Burns is not up there at the top of the league with only 40 registered pressures in 2023, but that's important to note that he also only had 814 total snaps compared to some of these guys at the top that are in the 1000s, for example. And that does matter. You got to be able to stay on the field and be productive. Of course, it gets slightly better when you're talking about just the regular season. I didn't realize I had that tabbed up. And maybe you can attribute some of that to playing on a pretty awful team. And not to say that the Giants are significantly better than the Panthers, because they're not. In 2022 was significantly better. He was at the top of the NFL in terms of pressures, right around that 70 mark with Josh Allen and Matt Judon, who was great, Danielle Hunter, Jalen Phillips, Myles Garrett, Darius Smith, Max Crosby, Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, some of the top names in the league that we're used to seeing. And this is purely from a total pressure standpoint. There's obviously, more to it than that. And Burns, via the PFF metric, had 13 sacks. They don't really count half sacks. It's a full sack or not. And he had 13 total sack contributions from just a pure sack perspective. And then when you look at ESPN's pass rush win rate rankings, it's significantly better for Brian Burns in 2023 with a 21% pass rush win rate. That's 40 wins on 189 plays. Again, you'd like to see him a little bit more often than just 189 plays, but that's what it is. It's right on par with Bryce Huff. But you don't need all these numbers for me to tell you that Brian Burns is a good player. We know that. Here was the thing I was most surprised about, is that people didn't like it. They're not excited about getting Brian Burns because maybe this means you can't move up for a quarterback, or your offense is so bad. But the two things, as I say, are not mutually exclusive. Upgrading the defense doesn't really have a whole lot of bearing on whether or not you can upgrade the offense. You still pick at number 6 overall in the draft. You still have your first round pick next year. You still have another top 50 pick in the draft. You still pick at number 70. You can upgrade the offense and still upgrade the defense. Now, you could argue that, okay, you know what? Got great value in terms of picks. Number 37 and a 5th, and then a 5th round pick swap to move up for one of the better edge rushers in the league. That obviously makes sense from a pick standpoint, but it's an overpay at $30 million. Again, we talked about that, but when you factor in where the Giants could be in 2025, their biggest cap hit significantly is Daniel Jones at $41 million. I don't think you guys have to be in tune, in touch with the Giants to know that this probably is not going to work out. The Giants, I do not think, will have Daniel Jones on the roster in 2025. You have an out here after the 2024 season. It's $22 million in dead cap, and you free up a ton of money by getting rid of him. This contract was set up in such a way, as I mentioned at the time, where it's really only a 2-year deal. If you want to keep him for 3 years, that's fine. But I think there is absolutely a 0% chance, unless Daniel Jones somehow miraculously and remarkably plays up to an MVP level, you are not going to allocate $58.5 million per year on Daniel Jones in 2026. So even if somehow he stays on the roster in 2025, I do not believe he will make it in 2026. That is a contract you are going to look to get rid of. So even though Brian Burns is now going to jump in with a $30 million cap hit or something in that neighborhood, you're still going to be saving a ton of money overall. You have the opportunity in the 2024 NFL draft. You still have enough ammunition to move up in the draft. You can say, okay, you got rid of 37. That's ammunition that's gone. However, you still have your first round pick number 6. You have a first round pick next year. Most of these teams are not going to take, we'll just throw in a couple of second round picks this year and you can move up for the QB. It's going to be multiple first round picks. And that's just what the case is for trading up for a quarterback, right? So you can still trade your 2024 round 1 and a 2025 round 1, plus some other things maybe, to move up for your QB. It's very expensive to move up for a quarterback. We know that. If the Giants want to do that, they still have plenty of ammo to do that. It's still a possibility. Darren Waller is another potential cap casualty at this point. The Giants have an out. Right now, they could take it if they wanted to. A dead cap at either $8 or $6 million, depending on when this cut happens after the 2024 season or 2025. Waller talked about retiring anyway. I don't know. Giants could absolutely get out of this contract. This cap hit probably will never get close to 15 or 17 million outside of just this 2024. I think that's probably a given, right? So the Giants' money is not really going to be a tremendous issue, in my opinion, just from what it looks like. And then factoring that in 2025, the Giants already will have the 11th most cap space you're of course going to take that down a little bit because of the Brian Burns deal. But if you get rid of Daniel Jones and Darren Waller, you're still right back up, if not even higher, top 10 in the league in available salary cap. You will have money if you want to pay guys. The Giants also went out today, got Jermaine Illuminor, who is a fine, backup to, okay, we got to start a guy at guard or tackle. He's experienced doing both. John Runyon Jr. is going to have to start. You can still draft a guard somewhere in this draft if you want to. A lot of the Giants' future success will hinge on whether or not Evan Neal can be a solid starter. Right now, he is not proven to be. 2024, I would say, is a make or break year for Evan Neal. He's got to stay healthy. He needs to make improvements. If Evan Neal can be a solid starter for the Giants, things actually don't look so bleak. Let's say you stick with Daniel Jones for one more year, right? In this scenario, receiver at number 6, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze. Think you're happy with that. No number 37 overall anymore, but at number 39 overall. But at number 47, you could still take one of the better guards available in the draft, maybe a Christian Haynes from UConn, Christian Mahogany from Boston College, who's already a New Jersey guy. That's a possibility. And then maybe your offensive line starts to look good. John Michael Schmitz, of course, second-round pick last year, future starting center. But a lot of it really hinges on whether or not Evan Neal can be even an average-type player, because up to this point, he has not been. But you definitely have improved. And what makes more sense for the Giants? Paying Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney, who got $17 million per year. Paying them, I think it was $29 per year or $35 million per year with Brian Burns and Devin Singletary. It's $6 million more per year, but I think the bigger impact is with the big-time edge rusher, and you got a starting caliber running back. So for me, everything to do with this Brian Burns deal, for right now, looks amazing. It's going to create more one-on-ones for Kayvon Thibodeau. Dexter Lawrence is already a monster. We know that. A defensive line, and I'm going to include, of course, the outside linebackers in the Giants 3-4, of Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, and Brian Burns looks very, very good. And, of course, Thibodeau needs to continue to improve as a player. Some of his sacks were not amazing last year. It's kind of an inflated number. Look at kind of the under-the-hood metrics and actually watch him. But you still have Raheem Nunez-Roches. You need to improve on the interior of the defensive line, somewhere in this draft probably or in free agency. But right now, the Giants, despite losing Xavier McKinney and Saquon Barkley, they got better today. And it's not saying much. It's a low bar. The Giants suck. Let's be honest. They suck. But getting Brian Burns, Devin Singletary, John Runyon Jr., and Jermaine Illuminor is moving in the right direction at least. They definitely are terrible as a team, but getting Brian Burns does not inhibit you from building out the rest of an offense. Even if you don't take a receiver at number 6, you can maybe trade up. No first-round pick next year. Whatever. Teams are built on day 2 and 3 of the draft. You're fine if you move a first-round pick next year. I really believe that, especially if you get your franchise quarterback, right? You can move up for Drake May or Jaden Daniels, maybe. It's a possibility. Maybe it's even J.J. McCarthy. That would be something. You can still do that. Take a receiver at 47 and then have a second, third, whatever, your entire draft next year, except for the 5th rounder. Like, the Giants have options. They're not absolutely dead. And I think that has to do with some of the great draft picks of Dave Gettleman, funnily enough. Had a lot of misses, but Dexter Lawrence is one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league. This contract for him is amazing. Shout out to Joe Shane. Andrew Thomas, one of the better tackles in the league. When healthy, he's under contract. This contract looks pretty great too. So you have 2 of the better players in their position in the entire league. Bobby Okereke, one of the better linebackers. Now you bring in Brian Burns. I love it. Are the Giants going to be great next year? Oh, I doubt it. I doubt it entirely, wholeheartedly. But there is a foundation in which to build around with young talent. Lawrence, Thomas, I say Lawrence weird. Lawrence, Thomas, Okereke, Burns. You've got a defense. Thomas is a building block on offense. You need Neal and John Michael Schmitz to take steps up. John Runyon hopefully can work with Carmen Brasillo to become a better guard. And then you have your draft picks. I don't care about losing 39 when you get Brian Burns. I don't care. A big win for the Giants. That's my rant over. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one. Take it easy.